You wake up one day and everything looks normal. Sky's blue, birds moving, people living like nothing's wrong. But up there, way past what anyone can see, a different kind of storm is coming. Not the calm, calculated type like Omni-Man. Nah, this one's raw violence given form. Because instead of a quiet infiltrator, the Viltrumite Empire sends Conquest, and that alone changes everything from the first second he hits Earth. No slow build, no fake family, no pretending to care. Conquest doesn't do patience. He doesn't do subtle. He lands like a meteor with intent. And within minutes, the planet knows something is wrong. Because cities don't just shake like that without a reason. And when Conquest steps out, he's not smiling like Nolan did. He's not blending in. He's scanning, judging, deciding if this world is even worth the effort. And right there, Earth already fails the test. Because to him, weakness isn't something to guide. It's something to erase. So instead of decades of setup, you get immediate domination attempts. Military forces respond fast, jets scramble, missiles launch, governments panic. But Conquest treats it like a warm-up. He tanks everything, walks through explosions, and starts tearing through defenses like paper. And here's the key difference. Nolan held back. Even at his worst, there was hesitation. There was a line. Conquest has none. So early Earth loses hard, fast, and loud. Entire cities get wiped before anyone even understands what they're dealing with. And the Global Defense Agency steps in almost instantly. They don't get years to observe. They don't get time to study. They throw everything at him day one. And it still doesn't work. Because Conquest isn't here to watch. He's here to conquer. And that word isn't a title. It's his whole personality. So Cecil tries strategy, throws enhanced soldiers, experimental weapons, even calls in the Guardians of the Globe way earlier than they would have been used against Nolan. But this time, there's no surprise betrayal moment, no twist. It's just a straight fight, and it goes bad, fast. Because the Guardians, even at their best, aren't built for someone like Conquest. He fights like he enjoys pain, like damage fuels him. So even when they land hits, it doesn't slow him down, it hypes him up, and one by one, they start dropping. Not because they're weak, but because he's operating on a different level of aggression. And the world starts realizing this isn't an invasion you negotiate with, this is survival. Now, here's where things get interesting. Because Mark still exists, Mark Grayson still grows up, still gets his powers, but without Nolan, they're guiding him, everything shifts. No training, no moral conflict from a father figure, no gradual understanding of what being a Viltrumite means. Mark's just a kid who suddenly gets insane power in the middle of a global crisis. And that pressure hits different, because instead of learning step by step, he's forced into war instantly. And when he first encounters Conquest, it's not a test, it's not a reveal. It's a massacre waiting to happen. Conquest doesn't care that Mark's half Viltrumite. If anything, he sees him as a failure, a diluted version of what he should be, and that means no mercy. So their first fight isn't a lesson, it's a beatdown. Mark gets destroyed, and not in a close fight way. In a hey, this wasn't even fair kind of way. And that changes his entire path, because instead of confidence, Mark builds himself from fear, from trauma, from knowing there's something out there he can't touch yet. And while he recovers, Earth keeps losing, because Conquest doesn't stop. He doesn't wait for rematches. He keeps pushing, taking out infrastructure, breaking resistance, forcing humanity into a corner. And Cecil starts thinking long-term, because brute force isn't working. So he looks for weaknesses. And here's the problem. Conquest barely has any. Physically, he's a tank. Mentally, he's locked in. Emotionally, he's not conflicted. So the usual strategies don't apply. And the Viltrumite Empire, watching all this, they're not disappointed. They're impressed. Because from their perspective, this is efficiency. No wasted time, no emotional attachments, just results. But there's one thing they didn't account for. Humans don't just fold. And Mark doesn't stay weak, because pain builds him differently. Without Nolan's influence, he doesn't hold on to the same ideals at first. He becomes more aggressive, more desperate, training harder, pushing limits faster, because he knows what's coming if he doesn't. And over time, he starts closing the gap. Not fully, but enough to matter. And when they clash again, it's still brutal, still uneven. But this time Mark fights back, lands hits that actually mean something. And Conquest notices, not with fear but with respect, because strength is the only thing he values. And now Mark is starting to show it. And that's where things shift again. Because Conquest doesn't just want to win, he wants a good fight. So instead of ending Mark quickly, he drags it out, tests him, pushes him further. And ironically, that's what gives Mark the chance to grow mid-fight, adapting, learning, surviving longer each time. And the longer this war goes on, the more Earth changes. Technology advances faster under pressure. Alliances form that wouldn't exist otherwise. Even villains start picking sides because survival affects everyone, and the scale of conflict grows. But Conquest remains the center of it all, like a walking disaster that won't leave. And eventually, the Viltrumite Empire sends more eyes to observe, maybe even more soldiers. Because if one Conquest can push Earth this far, imagine a full force, and that's the looming threat hanging over everything. But Mark becomes the key, because he's the only one who can match them long term. And without Nolan's betrayal arc, Mark's motivation becomes simpler but harsher. Protect or lose everything. No grey area, no slow realization, just a constant grind. And when he finally reaches a level where he can truly stand against Conquest, that fight becomes something else entirely. Not a stomp, not a one-sided beatdown, but a full clash of Viltrumite power, raw hits, broken ground, shockwaves ripping through cities. And this time, Mark doesn't break, he adapts, he counters, and for the first time, Conquest starts taking real damage. And that's when the tone flips, because now it's not just about conquering Earth anymore, it's about proving dominance, and Conquest goes all out, no holding back, pushing Mark to his absolute limit, and the outcome of that fight decides everything. Because if Mark wins, Earth earns breathing room, a chance to prepare for what's next. But if Conquest wins, there's no second chance, no regroup, just complete domination. And knowing Mark's character, knowing how he grows through pain, there's a strong case he eventually pulls through. Not easily, not clean, but through sheer will and adaptation. And when he does, it sends a message across the Viltrumite Empire. Earth isn't weak, it's evolving, and that makes it a bigger target, but also a bigger threat. And all of this, every destroyed city, every loss, every brutal fight, it all comes down to one simple change. Swapping patience for aggression, swapping Nolan for conquest. And that one switch turns a slow burn story into a non-stop war from day one. No build-up, no waiting, just impact after impact. And the craziest part, Mark ends up stronger because of it, not happier, not more stable, but stronger. Built in fire instead of guidance. And that version of Mark facing the future Viltrumite invasion, that's a whole different beast compared to the one we know. So now the real question is, does that hardened Mark end up saving more lives long term? Or does he lose himself before he even gets the chance?